It started with a phone call I never expected, my neighbor's voice trembling as she told me my boat was gone. At first I thought it was a mistake or that my son had moved it for cleaning, but when I saw the empty space where it had been, I knew something was very wrong. I stood there for a long time, staring at the empty space where my fishing boat used to be. It was a 20-foot aluminum beauty I'd restored myself, a labor of love that carried memories of early morning trips with my father. I called the police to report it stolen, but the officer's tone changed when I mentioned my address. Our neighborhood was under the jurisdiction of the HOA. He asked if I had checked with the association first. That was my first red flag. When I called the HOA office, I got a clipped response from the manager saying the boat had been removed for violating storage regulations. I'd lived here for years without a single complaint, and my boat had been parked in the same spot all that time. She refused to tell me where it was. By that evening, I got a text from a neighbor, photos of the HOA president, a woman named Carol, or as many in the neighborhood called her, HOA Karen, towing my boat to her lake house property 2 towns over. She didn't even try to hide it. I contacted a lawyer the next morning. He told me that if my boat had been taken without proper notice or due process, it was theft, plain and simple. But he also said something else. Because my boat was insured and registered federally for interstate waterway use, this might cross into federal jurisdiction. That's when I started making phone calls, not just to local police, but to the FBI's field office. If you enjoy gripping true-life stories like this, hit like, drop a comment, and share it with your friends. Subscribe to QZ Stories so you don't miss the twists and turns in the battles we uncover. The FBI agent I spoke with didn't sound surprised. Apparently, HOA-related property disputes sometimes escalate into federal cases when stolen items are transported across state lines or tampered with in ways that violate maritime law. My boat's registration number was on a federal database, and if it had been moved outside our state, which according to my neighbor's photo timestamps it had, it was now a matter of federal interest. 2 days after my report, I got a visit. 2 agents in dark jackets stepped onto my porch, notebooks in hand. They asked me to recount everything in detail: when I last saw the boat, what communications I'd had with the HOA, and whether I had proof of ownership. I handed over my title, insurance documents, and the photos my neighbor had taken. Meanwhile, I heard through the grapevine that Carol was bragging about how she finally got rid of that eyesore. What she didn't know was that the FBI had already traced my boat's GPS tracker, a small hidden device I'd installed years ago after a friend had his stolen. It pinged from her private dock at her vacation home. That evening, I sat on my porch in the fading light, my phone buzzing, with updates from neighbors who were now just as curious as I was. The air felt heavy, like the neighborhood itself knew something big was coming, and it did, faster than I imagined. It was early morning when the convoy rolled in. 2 unmarked SUVs, a sheriff's cruiser, and a trailer truck. They didn't even knock on her door first. The agents went straight to her dock, documenting every inch of my boat, snapping photos, reading out serial numbers. Carol came storming out in a robe, demanding to know what the hell they were doing. One agent calmly read her the warrant. Her voice rose, shrill and indignant, insisting the HOA had authority over all property in the neighborhood. The agent just shook his head. "Ma'am, this vessel is federally registered. You had no legal right to remove it, let alone transport it across state lines." I stood a few feet away, keeping my hands in my pockets, watching as the agent secured my boat and winched it onto the trailer. She tried to accuse me of harassment, but the sheriff cut her off, reminding her she was the one under investigation. The neighborhood was awake by then. People lined the street, phones recording as the woman who had bullied so many finally faced consequences. Her face turned pale when one of the agents quietly told her she might want to call her lawyer. I didn't gloat. I didn't need to. The sight of my boat being brought back was enough. 2 days later, Carol's own pontoon boat was gone. The FBI had seized it as part of a broader investigation into property theft and misuse of HOA funds. They'd uncovered more during their visit than anyone expected. Apparently, my stolen boat was just the tip of the iceberg. Rumors spread fast. People whispered about offshore accounts, inflated maintenance fees, and missing community funds. The HOA board called an emergency meeting, but without Carol, it fell apart. Within weeks, she resigned, pending charges that would keep her tied up in court for a long time. As for me, I kept my boat in a secure marina from then on. The FBI had advised it, and frankly, I didn't want to risk another run-in with someone like her. Neighbors stopped me on the street to thank me, not just for standing up for myself, but for finally bringing an end to her reign of petty harassment. It wasn't the kind of justice you see in movies. There were no dramatic arrests, no handcuffs, in the driveway. But there was a quiet satisfaction in knowing the law worked, that patience and documentation could bring even the most arrogant rule breakers to account. Sometimes you don't have to shout to be heard. Sometimes you just have to make the right calls and let the truth do the rest. If you'd like, I can also rewrite this in an even more gripping docudrama style with more sensory details, legal nuances, and a heavier slow burn tension. Perfect for keeping viewers hooked for the full video. That would give it the Netflix true crime feel. Would you like me to do that?